Hi there, this is Doug. This is another video in the series on the BigCommerce data import process, the new version, whatever that means. And here we are at the third revision of the spreadsheet and all the processes that are involved in revision 3. So hopefully at this point you've got another computer in the background running the file URL copy, and it's copying out all the PDFs and images that you need, and so you're back to working on the spreadsheet while it's doing its downloads. The next thing we're going to do here in this sheet is to remove some of the columns of data that we don't need anymore, and try and isolate the product attributes and compare those and come up with a good list of lumens, color, CRI, wattage, voltage, blah, blah, blah. And to do a little preliminary cleanup of the product description. And let us start off here with some of the unnecessary columns that we can happily whack. We no longer, since REV2 and the other computer is doing the file downloads, we don't need these PDF and image URLs. They're not going to be used any further. We've already got the names, which is good enough. Before you wipe these, you're going to have to change these from formula to literal values, because as soon as I clobber this, that formula won't apply and everything will be blanked, and you need those names later on. The simplest way of doing that is to insert a blank column right next to it, do a copy, and do a paste values. Okay, that gives us the literal values, not the formula anymore. Now we can get rid of both of these. And we will do that all the way across on these columns. So image 2 and delete. Alright, we've got the literal for image 2, good. Now install, copy, paste values, alright, good. Remove these. And the last one for the spec sheets. These columns here on the image file size and the PDF file sizes, that will actually be on REV2 of the sheet. That's the URL file downloader program is going to be entering that information on the machine that's doing the file downloads. So you shouldn't have these unless you're doing things a different way. You won't need these any further if you have already used this to compare and make sure that you've downloaded all the images and files that were appropriate. You've tried re-downloading successfully or not the ones that weren't. You've removed the garbage. You've removed the file names of anything that did not download successfully, and you're dealing with a clean list. Hopefully that's what REV3 should be. I guess it'll quirky if you're running two machines. You got REV2 on one and REV3 on the other, so you might be doing some splicing there on the images to update the list. I know that's kind of vague, but hopefully you get the idea. Anyway, so we're assuming that we've already done this file comparison and everything downloaded like we expected, and now we can delete that. Try and consolidate any columns that are identifiers for categorization and make your best guess on what you're going to need and what you're not. In this case, product type over there is probably useful, but product line doesn't look like it's useful at all. So let's go ahead and clear that and move the product type over here. And between product type and product group, this should give us a pretty good indication of how to categorize these products later in the process. Once again, remember to delete blank columns so you don't get yourself fouled up. Okay, for our next bit, we're going to want to run the attribute extraction program on the description so we can do a comparison of what's the lumen, wattage, CRI, etc. The description says compared to what they've put in this column. This is not absolutely necessary in every vendor, but unfortunately REV decided to be funny and use different numbers and different things, so nothing matches up. So this is why we have to run the extraction to be able to compare and find out what things are wrong and correct. Also, an unusual thing is you'll see in the lumens that they've decided to not use a whole number. It is, like in this case, 14533.3. Well, that looks ugly and is completely unnecessary. No one cares about 0.5 or 0.3 of a lumen. So at some point later on, that'll have to be cleaned up. Anyway, so we run this extraction program, description extract lumens wattage voltage CRI, and it's also going to use a dictionary to extract any additional information. It's a little complicated on what this program does, so I'm not going to explain it, but the end result is after it's identified this information, it's going to put the columns of information over here with an X next to it, so you can compare to these values and see if there are any differences. So we'll go ahead and run that. Start debugging, Python file. This happens every time you run the program the first time. If you have to run it successive times, there's a blue button over here instead. Alright, put in the column of the product description, which is C, and hopefully it'll perform its miracle and not crap out. Alright, and it looks like it's completed. Now let's take a look and see, did it do what we hoped it would do? And over here on the back end, let me go ahead and expand that out a little bit. Format, autofit, column width. Alright, and now we have some columns of information so we can compare to the other stuff. You're going to have to move things around a little bit here so you can compare them one-to-one. Probably easiest to drag the original ones towards the back than to take the back ones and drag them towards the front. Okay, so there's what they said the lumens are, and this is what the extraction said the lumens are. And luckily this is looking pretty good. And we just do this for the other columns. So we've been moving everything over. Voltage is the last thing to drag over here for comparison. Come on. Okay, so original extraction, original extraction, original extraction. Very good. And we go over here, and as we said, we go ahead and delete these blank columns before we forget they're there and foul something up later. After you do this extraction and compare, then there's you're going to try and merge the data. Towards the end, of course, we only got one. We want one column this lumens, one this wattage, one, so 2-3 columns of this isn't useful going on. There are going to be cases where there's going to be information that is in one column that isn't in the other one. That's not unusual. Since we're just dealing with a small batch of 100 here for testing, we can see most of this pans out pretty well. With the exception of CRI, we didn't get a lot of CRI out of the description extractor. Those are the ones with the X, but we did have a bunch of CRI ratings in what the vendor had provided us. So, and since the things that were in the extraction matched, then we would just go ahead and delete that. Alright, so that consolidates. Dimming, there was no dimming information, but leave this column intact because the programs later on will use the blank column in their processes. Looking at color, we see that there's nothing in the extraction that didn't also match what we already had. No discrepancies, that's good. On the full 46,000, of course, there were a lot that, we had a color entry in one, but nothing in the extraction. As I said, you squish them together. What you get in one that's not in the other, squish them together. The X columns take precedence over the values in here, mainly because it's a lot harder to change the information in the product description than to change the information in the column. Which is more accurate? I don't know. I'm not a lighting specialist. And we delete this out. So once again, so we have single columns. Dimming X, we can change that to dimming if we want, but I'll leave it alone. We look at voltage. Voltage matches up fine, so we can go ahead and clobber that one. All the information in wattage is identical, but we like voltage and wattage to have a V or W at the end of it, so it's just more of a convenience to clobber the primary one and leave the extract one just because it's got a W, no other reason than that. Now lumens is a little tricky. This is going to be something very unusual that you're not going to see in other vendors, I hope, where we have odd numbers here. And what we're going to want to do is round that and push the new information into the description at some point. This is unusual for other vendors, but how you would handle something like this is be able to do a rounding formula. Just call this round. Looks something like this, equals round the column that your information is in, Q2, and give it 0 decimal places. And that will round these floating point numbers into whole numbers. All right. Now that did very well. We're going to rename that lumens new. All right, and of course now we can delete one of these redundant columns, as we said, because that's a formula here. We have to convert these formulas to literals, so we're going to copy there, paste the values. This is a formula. This is a real number. Okay, now then we can get rid of both of these. Keep lumens and lumens new because there's other programs we will deal with that information later. As I said, this is just unusual to this particular vendor. And after all that, now is probably a good time to save these changes, make sure that we don't foul anything up. The last thing to do on this revision is to go ahead and categorize these products. We can do this because we're doing a small batch of 100 here. So as we know, we have a categorization worksheet here that tells us what product categories we are creating or have created inside our BigCommerce site, and we do our best guess as to try and match up what the vendor thinks the product is and what the product actually is according to our groupings, and put these categories in. These are case sensitive, space sensitive, and everything else sensitive, so do not type these things in manually. Copy and paste them into the spreadsheet, or else you will foul something up when you do BigCommerce. If it doesn't find an exact match, it creates a new one. You can create all kinds of hell inside your site by creating multiple categories because you put a space in one, a lowercase in another, etc., and that's just a mess to clean up, so don't do it. If the vendor has provided any categorizing information, try and group it from major to minor. So it looks like our major is product type here. This gives us lamp, outdoor, and indoor, I think, yeah. And then this next grouping kind of defines it a little bit more detail. So we would do a data sort using the categorizing information that the vendor has provided, which is not always the case that they'd have it, but use it as best as we can. So we do sort by prototype, additionally by product group, and then finally by the SKU, the identifier, so that they're kind of grouped in similar products. That gives us the best combination of results normally if we have any information from the vendor. In this case, really nothing changed here, and that's fine. So it looks like we've got lamps and outdoor area lights that happen to be clearance. Alright, at this point we'd go ahead and insert our category column, go to our BC template over here and pick up the actual name of the column so we don't misname something. Shrink this down a little bit. Then look in our list and try and figure out what these are as proximately as possible. Luckily, this is a pretty simple thing. The first three are A15 bulbs, the rest of our area lights. So we'll look these things up in our categories, and the bulbs are indoor and the lighting are outdoor. So in bulbs we have the category bulbs A, so that would work with our bulbs. So for the first three, copy and paste there. Okay, those are taken care of. The rest are outdoor area lights. Alright, looking at our categories, we have the category outdoor area and garage lights. Okay, so we copy that, highlight all the remaining because they're all the same, and do that. Alright, now we've got the categories all done. Now that we've got everything categorized, the likelihood of us needing these again are slim, and if we do need them again, we still have them in REV2. We can pull them back if we have to, so we can go ahead and delete these out of our worksheet. And for our final bit of cleanup on this revision, we're going to go ahead and put these prices, product weights, and UPC ANs on the end, just to group these attributes a little bit better for next processes that we're going to do. Alright, that completes this video. This completes revision 3. Once again, the very last thing we do here is save the changes, then do a file and save as in our local folder to create a copy of this for REV4 for the next bit of processing. And there we are, ready to start revision 4. That completes this video. Thank you for your attention.